Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kim Schmidt, Executive Editor of Farm Equipment Magazine. Welcome to our latest webinar in conjunction with the Western Equipment Dealers Association's Dealer Institute. Today's presenter is trainer Kelly Mathison, a trainer with the Dealer Institute. Kelly's got nearly 30 years of experience in the ag equipment industry, ranging from sales and marketing for a manufacturer to working in both single and large multi-store dealerships. Before we get started with the presentation, just a few housekeeping items. On your screen, there's a control panel with a Q&A icon. You can submit questions here at any time during the presentation, and we'll try to answer as many of those as we can after Kelly's done presenting. And then if for any reason your internet connection fails, and it looks like the webinar has been interrupted, you can get back in through the email link you received earlier today. And then just a reminder, we are recording the webinar, so you'll have a chance to watch a replay if you are interested later. All right, we're ready to get started. Thanks for joining us, and take it away, Kelly.
Great, thanks very much, Kim, and thanks very much to all our attendees today. Thanks for attending. I know it's a busy time of year, and so a shout out to Farm Equipment Magazine for providing these events. They're awesome. They're some really good content, and thanks to Western Equipment Dealers Association and the Dealer Institute for sponsoring today's event. So again, my name's Kelly Mathison, and I focus primarily on parts and service and aftermarket training at the Dealer Institute. So today we're going to talk about improving customer retention and providing value through your aftermarket department. And of course, it's no surprise that in our industry, especially in the ag side of the business, customer retention is critical. And I don't need to remind anybody, it's not new news that agricultural dealerships, we're seeing a huge decline in the number of customers we have. And this isn't new. We've been seeing this decline for decades. But there's still some pretty significant changes going forward. And I recently listened to Scott's, well, he's with Aimpoint Research, and I've got the website up on here if people are interested, but I listened to Brett Scioto speak at our dealer convention here last fall, and some pretty interesting things that came up. Now the research they did was a little more focused on crop input. They really did it on the crop input side, but there's some really interesting similarities when it comes to the equipment side. So I'm just going to share a little bit of information, and again, there's their website if you want to get further details, because I'm just touching on a few highlights. But one of the things that really struck me was they talked about today in North America, we're in approximately 2.2 million farmers, farm customers, about 200,000 in Canada, about 2 million in the US. And this was an interesting projection. They're saying by 2040, which is only 20 years away, that 5% of today's farmers will produce 75% of the food. So if you do the math, instead of 2.2 million farmers, they're talking about 110,000 farmers. So this whole idea that farmers are, we're done seeing the decline in the number of farm customers. The same amount of land is going to be farmed, but drastically we're going to be dealing with fewer and fewer customers, and these customers are getting bigger and bigger and more sophisticated. So obviously, customer retention is critical. We can't afford to be losing any customers. Now, they focus mostly on primary agriculture. We know that we quite often in our dealerships deal with the lifestyle and homestead customer, and but really making sure that we look after those customers and retain those customers, because they're being targeted maybe by a non-traditional competitor. We think about our competitors as maybe the John Deere dealer down the street, or the New Holland dealer, or the AGCO dealer, or the Kubota dealer might be your competitor. But really these customers, they're being targeted by companies like Tractor Supply, the Farm and Ranch Supply Outfits, PV Marts, Fleet Farm, those type of organizations that are really bringing those customers in, and they're selling them an awful lot of parts and service. I know their sales are in the billions. So there's some real competition there. And then of course we have our online competitors for these customers, whether it's buying parts through Amazon/eBay, but also on the service side. When we talk parts and service, there's a lot of competition you may not realize from the do-it-yourself subscription-based YouTube video channels, for do-it-yourself service or do-it-yourself repair. And so they may be not just taking your parts business, they may be sucking away some of that service business as well. And of course, other online parts suppliers. So whether it's traditional customers, but there's also other online aftermarket parts suppliers that could be eating away at your parts and service business. So we got to make sure we're retaining those customers there. So how do we gain and retain customers in this sort of an environment? So let's just talk quickly about sort of what goes on in the historic parts and service. I mean, really, historically, we've been parts required to support sales, really just to make sure we had those parts because that's what brought them back in the door, and service for emergency repairs. In fact, we, as an industry, we'd always pride ourselves in saying, hey, we've got great after-hours service or great after-hours parts. We'd even advertise it. And but it was quite reactive, I guess, as I could put it. So we're really in that reactive mode. And actually, a dealer once said to me, we're a bit like a fire department. We wait for the customer to need a part or have a breakdown so that we can jump into action. Sort of much like a fire department waits till something's burning before they leap into action. And we're certainly seeing a change from that in our business. We've a lot of dealers have done a great job of moving to being more proactive. So on the parts side, by offering off-season parts specials, maybe doing parts catalog with pre-season or post-season specials, doing telephone marketing campaigns to bring in seasonal parts, and perhaps offering off-season discounts to really pull that business and being more proactive at getting parts to customers. And in some cases, more focus on not just parts, replacement parts, but more service items. So with branded oils, filters, batteries, other maintenance items, a lot of the manufacturers are doing a job of really getting into that market and supporting dealers, and dealers are doing a good job of selling that. So that's really moved into this proactive versus reactive. And of course, on the service side, we've seen a really nice trend, and some dealers are doing just a bang-up job of this, of their pre-season and post-season inspection programs or preventative maintenance programs. A lot of them are doing target service specials, and it could be service specials such as an injector service or a valve adjustment, or for higher hour machines, some overhaul specials, or and even setting up contracts. We've seen with some of these larger farmers now, dealers getting into pre-season schedules, on-site service inspections and maintenance, doing them right on the farm. And that's, again, being a lot more proactive. So let's just talk about those. So how did we really sell these? And I'm not saying this is bad, but primarily we did it by offering discounts and special offers, okay? And so you'd see this quite often. Oh, we have 10% off on parts, at this time of year, or 10% off labor in the wintertime to try and draw some of that business. Maybe you're offering free trucking, free delivery to get machines into the shop for your service, or offering a no interest, no payment plan, service now, pay later. And really, it's around that free stuff. So we're kind of focusing the value of our parts and service and off season around discounting. And the assumption there is that really it's only price that drives these customers. Now, price is important, but really it really kind of drives customers to be thinking all the time about getting a discount or getting a better price. So let's just talk quickly about the impact of discounting parts. So I've heard, if you've been to some of my classes or some of my webinars before, I may have shown you this before. But here's just a quick example of some of your parts people may not realize, or you may not realize when you're doing something like this. So let's just take an assumption. You're getting a 30% gross margin on a part, and you decide, well, why don't we offer 10% off on that part? Maybe we can get some more business or what have you. So maybe that's all the thought that goes into it. So here's a question. How many more units do you need to sell to generate the same amount of gross margin dollars? Because we know it's the gross margin dollars that really pay the bills in your dealership. That's the money you need to have coming in to make payroll, pay the heat, the light, the taxes, and keep the business rolling. So do you need to sell 20% more parts, 35% more, 50% more. So a quick example, let's use it. Say we've got a $50 part. We're shooting for a 30% margin, so we're selling that part for $71.42, which means $21.42 gross margin dollars on that part. Let's assume we sell 10 a year. So that's $214 worth of gross margin dollars that you're bringing in selling that particular part. Now, if you decide off the cuff to say, well, why don't we offer a 10% discount? Well, that means you're going to knock $7.14 off every part. And the assumption is you're not getting a discount for your manufacturer for my example here. So now you're only making $14.28. So now you have to sell 15 units, which is, if you really do the math here, that's 50% more of these units that have to be sold to make the same amount of gross margin dollars. Now, a lot of your manufacturers will give you a discount in off season, so perhaps you're passing that on, but it just makes you think about the impact it has, how much more you really need to sell. Now let's look at it in the service department. So we do our cost of doing business survey. We also work with a lot of peer groups, and we look at net incomes of a service department. So net income is after all the bills are paid, techs have been paid, heat, light, taxes, and how much is left. And in a lot of dealerships, it's less than 10% of sales. In fact, some dealerships will report that they're barely breaking even in their service department. So, but let's assume you are making a 10% net income after all expenses have been paid. So on a $2,000 labor work order, that's only $200 going to the bottom line of the dealership. Now, if you decide to throw a $100 free trucking to get that job in, you can see the impact it has. It takes away basically half that net profitability of the dealership. And I don't need to tell you that the math's pretty easy here. What if you decide then to say to the customer, well, I'll give you 10% off. Well, 10% off 2,000 is 200, and you've basically done it all for free when you really think about it. You've created some gross margin dollars to keep the doors open, but you're not really making any money. So now, I'm not saying all discounts are bad, okay? There's good discounting and bad discounting. So I use the example of bad discounting is usually when it's after the fact and the customer's just said, hey, give me a better deal. All right, you're caught flat-footed, and sometimes we fall victim to that. I'm not a fan of matching competitors. Someone will use it as a thing to say, hey, we match all competitors' prices. But in my opinion, you should really research your product and have the price right, because you're telling the customer, hey, I was willing to overcharge you, but you caught me. So I'm going to give you a discount now. And sometimes it's just a gut feeling. I've heard dealers say, well, it's just too much. That part's just too expensive, or that item's just too expensive. They won't pay it. We have to discount. Well, is that really true, or is that a gut feeling? Now, good discounting can really revolve around pulling sales ahead. So like we mentioned, whether it's your oils, your filters, getting stuff delivered, parts, maybe twine, cotton wrap, mesh wrap for bales, all those sort of things, pulling that sales ahead of the season so that you're not dealing with it in the busy season. And the same on the service side, pulling work ahead out of the busy season so that you can deal with not having to pay overtime, or just be able to schedule the right technicians to the right job. Might be a good reason to offer some sort of a special price. And of course, if your manufacturer is offering some discounts or some volume buys, you can pre-sell and maybe pass those discounts along without impacting your own margins. And of course, we want to drive sales. But let's just take a look at, we quite often think that all customers care about is parts, discounts. That's all they care about. They just want a better price. That's the only thing they worry about. We hear it all the time. So I'm just going to refer to the Ag Equipment Intelligence 2020 Brand Loyalty Survey. And I'll give you the web link a little bit later in the presentation. There's some very interesting information now that they've done this survey for quite a number of years. I think it's been over 10 years. And it's quite interesting to see the trend. So I had a look at their new survey, and I did some comparisons back to previous years. And one of the questions really comes to my mind is, what do customers value the most? And this was interesting. 4 of the top 12 reasons that customers switch to another equipment brand revolve around the dealer's ability to provide parts, service, and product support. So I draw attention to this because when you really think about this, it doesn't talk about the color of the paint. They're talking about it's the dealer's ability. That's what the farmer customer sees, is that dealer's ability. And number one was better parts availability. And this has been the same. I went back to previous surveys. It always rises to the top. Parts is critical to customers sticking with your brand or deciding to switch to another brand. So customers see huge value in the fact that you can supply them with parts. Better dealer repair and service was also in the top 5. It was number 3 this year. And having product specialists at the dealership. So this isn't just people that can show them how to operate machines, but these are parts and service specialists that can help the customer solve problems. And number 6 out of the 12 was better manufacturer's warranty. Now, I'm not going to really talk about this one right now, but I will come back to that because a lot of parts and service people don't realize the impact they have when you talk about manufacturer's warranty. They think warranty is, well, isn't that what goes with a new machine when we sell it? It's got a 1-year warranty or 6-month warranty or whatever it is. And we don't think about that, the warranty, when it pertains to aftermarket. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So what are some of the other reasons customers switch? Well, some of them aren't within our control, right? Product engineering might be more on the manufacturer itself. However, we do have an impact on how we set them up, maybe what kits we install, or how we optimize those machines for the customer's needs in our area. So we do have some impact on that. Financing options usually falls back to the manufacturer or their financing arms. And of course, lower invoice price. Some of you think you don't have a lot of control over that. And that's fair enough. So the point is we really want to focus on what's within our control. Now here's another one, and this one really hit me, was bad experience with the current dealership was number 7 on the list of the reasons they would switch. And what's interesting about this comment was there's another question that said bad experience with the current brand, and it was further down the list. So what I was gleaning from that information was that a customer, and maybe you're that way yourself, but a customer, if he has a failure with a machine and the dealer looks after them, they'll quite often say, well, you know what, things happen. You did your best. You got me fixed up, right? But a bad experience with the dealership, if they show that maybe you didn't care or seemed like you were indifferent to the problem or didn't put the effort that they felt, that was a bigger reason to switch than actually the machine breaking down itself. It's how you reacted, that experience. So I thought that was a very interesting thing. And when you think about it, customers will interact 3 to 5 times. I've even heard as much as 10 times more often with your parts and service staff than they will with sales or management, right? So that is your frontline people in your aftermarket department, your parts and service front counter people, your technicians in the field. That is what I'm referring to as your front line when it comes to aftermarket. And they're talking to the customers all the time, quite often 10 times or 10 times more often than a salesperson or the manager is. So let's go back a little bit to this Aimpoint research. So these new customers, what are customers of the future? What do they want? And so as I dug into some of the research that came from Aimpoint's findings, but these farmers are getting larger and they're getting more sophisticated. Pretty obvious, right? They're getting huge, and they're looking at what they need to supply, especially to the food chain, when they're providing beef or pork or poultry or grains to be made into cereal or bread. They need to make sure that that product is safe. So they're getting more and more sophisticated to find out what their customers want. So what they are looking for is a trusted partner, not a middleman. If they can go directly to the source, meaning if they could order a tractor or a baler online and there's no other value, they'll do it. If they can get fertilizer or crop inputs directly, and that middleman, so to speak, isn't providing value, they don't see it. However, if they're a trusted partner, they're saying, I'll pay for that, okay? Because I trust to have that person in the middle. The second thing they want is a return on investment. So this is different than just saying they want a lower price. They want to know that if they invest their money in a service package or buying an original part or versus a remanufactured part or a non-OEM part over the internet, that investment is going to pay off. It's going to make them more reliable or reduce their downtime or allow them to make more money. So they need to see that return on investment, which really comes back to anybody they deal with. They want to make sure that they deal with a dealer or a parts or service personnel that's adding value to their business, okay? And the big thing is we need to understand their business, how they make their money, and where we fit into that value chain, not just to be a middleman, but to be a trusted partner to help them achieve their success. Now, our lifestyle and commercial customers are slightly different, of course. They may be working on the money, maybe not be making money on their lifestyle farm or maybe their acreage, but they are also important. They want to save time and money, and they may see that as being able to deal on the internet is cheaper and it saves them time versus going to the dealership. Perhaps it's more convenient. So obviously, if PV Mart and Tractor Supply is open on a Sunday and we're not, they're going to see that as saving them time and convenience. But we really need to understand, the bottom line is we need to understand what that customer's needs are and what their wants are, what's important to them. So where do we fit into this? Future parts and service. And this is sort of the next on that curve. We move from reactive to proactive to being what we call more predictive, right? So being on top of saying to customers, we know your business so well that we're going to predict when your parts are going to need replacing. We're going to predict how long that's going to last in your operation and when you should be replacing it, right? And this comes along with being predictive on customer support, right? And you're seeing this in other industries, right? Where you get contacted ahead of schedule to say, hey, you need an update on your computer, or you need an update on your iPhone, or it's time to change the oil in your car. You've got these, they're basically coming to you, and it's making customers really not worry about it anymore. They're saying, well, my dealer looks after that, or my supplier looks after making sure that my machine's up and running. So it's being predictive. Maybe predicting when that service is required by tracking the number of hours that are being put on that machine during a season. Now, some manufacturers are coming up with remote machine monitoring, where basically the machine is talking back to the dealership, sending back alert codes or maybe problem codes or alerts, tracking the hours with machines. So the dealer's now aware, perhaps before the operator even knows, okay? So you're able to predict, hey, you got trouble here because this tractor's showing it's running high temperature 4 days running. We better get out there and see if we can get you fixed up. And maybe the fleet owner doesn't even know that that's a problem. So it's really identifying the issue before the customer or the operator is even aware. So that's really something. Now, you don't necessarily have to have remote monitoring to be able to do that. When you think about it, if you know your customers and you know how many hours they're putting on their tractor and their baler every year, you probably have a pretty good prediction of when things are going to wear out. So you don't necessarily have to say, well, we need to wait for technology to get that information. So it comes back to making sure we're adding value. We don't want to be a middleman. We want to be a true partner. So here's some questions you may want to ask yourself, and you think about this in your organization, is really around providing value and understanding your customers. So here's a little quiz. Can you answer yes to any of these questions? The products and services we provide, now I'm thinking about aftermarket here, enhances your customer's position with their customers. So if they're a feed producer, maybe for a feed mill, or maybe they're selling food quality grain to a processor, who are their customers and how can we help them make more money so that they're delivering a better product to their customer, okay? So just understanding how they make their money, right? Who are your customers' customers? Do we ever think about that? And how do we enhance their productivity and profitability? So rather than saying, how do we make money, saying, how can we help our customers be more profitable, more productive, and have them come to us as a true trusted partner? How do they make their money? How do we make them more durable, reliable, or stable, right? Maybe they're planting and harvesting their own crops. Perhaps they're doing custom work, and they need to be durable and reliable in gaining or retaining contracts, especially if they're doing custom work, and making their customers' life easier, safer, and better. So it could be a situation of saying, we'll look after all the servicing on your fleet of 20 tractors or whatever that is. And we'll make sure all the safety recommendations, because you have maybe family members or hired operators running those things. So we want to make sure that not only are they up and running when you hit that key, but your operators are safe and they're able to do the job properly, which really, that might be the value that customer sees, to say, well, if you can look after that, then that's one less thing I have to worry about, and I can worry about marketing my product and making more money. Well, great, that's good. That's where we fit, okay? Now here's an interesting comment. I got this from Devin Dubois. And Devin, I knew him, he was a VP of Integrated Solutions at a dealer in Western Canada. He's now with the Hemp Ventures in Saskatoon, but I got asked him permission if I could use this quote, because he was really looking at it from a standpoint of saying, we need to do the little things that can help cultivate relationships, like becoming a trusted resource for information that growers can't get by going to the internet. So you think about that, rather than saying, oh, my customers just Google it, that's where they get their information, to say, no, we're their resource. When it comes to parts or service or machine optimization or uptime or making a decision, we want them to come to us. My parts people are the experts, and they'll give them good advice, and they trust them more than they do some stranger on the internet. And you think about that, do we put the effort into making sure that our frontline people are truly the experts, our technicians giving the proper advice to our customers, and our parts people doing that? So it's a great question. So that brings us to, how well do our frontline people know our customers? And this is interesting, because I know, being in the dealership for years, we spent a lot of time really working on getting product information to our parts front counter people, to our technicians. We're always sending them to technical training, which of course is critical. They need to know that. But how often did we say we're going to spend a little bit of time making sure that our frontline people understand our customers, right? And I use this kind of a silly example, but if you were to order a pizza online or by telephone, if anybody does that anymore, but you call Pizza Hut, my local Pizza Hut, as soon as I call, they know my name, they know what I usually order, they know what sides I usually order, they know what drinks I order, they know my address, and so they really make it so easy. I call it frictionless to order from them. I tend to go there because they make it so easy, right? And so you think about that, they're in their own way, through their database, they're trying to make it easier to say, we know that customer, we know what he likes to eat, we know what he likes to order. So it's kind of a silly example, but it really, we should be able to do that too. So our frontline people have to have excellent product knowledge, but do they have good customer knowledge? Do they understand? Are we utilizing our database or our customer relationship management database to really say, that customer, this is what they do. They grow pork for this pork plant, and this is how they make their money. Or they're a dairy operator, or they're in the custom business for forage. And this is how they make their money. This is their critical time. Do our frontline people know that? And it could be as simple as just saying, hey, make, model, serial numbers, having that right in the database. So the customer, as they come in, as soon as they bring it up, they say, yeah, we know your machine, we know the serial number, we know how many hours, we know what options you are. So we'll make sure we send you home with the right parts that will help you do your job, because we know your business and we know your equipment. It may sound silly, but it's amazing how convenient that is, to be able to go into a dealership and just say, yeah, we know exactly what you need, okay? And also, this comes back to being the trusted advice on their equipment based on their conditions. So we know, Mr. Customer, you work in muddy conditions or sandy conditions or cold conditions. So we understand when we're making a recommendation on service or parts that it's going to work in your conditions, which maybe they don't get on the internet. They might see something on the internet that says, yeah, they recommended this. Well, yeah, but that's for the southern states. You're in the northern plains or you're in Western Canada. Your conditions are much different. So we need to think about that. And giving them some options. So maybe it's the original equipment manufacturer's parts, or perhaps it's remanufactured components or non-OEM parts. Maybe you do offer some lower priced components that will work, like air seeder hose or things like that, that customer may say, you know, for my operation, I think I can get away with that. Where a larger operator might say, no, I need the high quality stuff because of the size of my farm. Well, if you really knew your customer, you could say, hey, I understand how many acres you're covering. This is why I'm making this recommendation. Here's your 3 options. Okay, so you're becoming a trusted partner. So it might be a heavy duty or extended wear parts versus a cheaper brand, but it really comes back to asking those questions. And in our training programs, we always talk about, rather than just saying, what part do you need, or do you know what you want, saying to the customer, what are you working on? Or a better question is your machine down? And that customer calls for a part. I love that question, because let's just take an example. If a customer comes in and says, I need a bearing for my baler, and you say, is your machine down? And they say, yeah, it's out in the field in my hay's waiting. Okay, so really what you want to do, Mr. Customer, is get your baler up and running as quickly as possible. I can sell you this bearing, right? But we may find that the shaft is damaged, or the bearing at the other end of that roller is also about to give out. Perhaps I should send you home with a full solution to make sure your baler is up and running as quickly as possible, which might also mean perhaps we should do that repair for you, because it sounds like uptime is really the problem, not just the bearing. Okay, so that suggestive selling, we talk about upselling all the time, but really it's providing a solution, right? Those related components that drive that solution. So adding value. This kind of comes back to my example with the baler there. I mentioned earlier that manufacturer's warranty was number 6 on both the 2017 and the 2020 ag equipment manufacturer brand loyalty study. And does Aftermarket, do they worry about that? If a customer's saying, no, it's the manufacturer's warranty they worry about. So here's a question that I always pose when we're in our classes is, do your aftermarket frontline people, meaning your counter people or your technicians, talk about warranty? And the reason I say this is, do they know what the parts warranty is over the counter? So some manufacturers might offer 30-day warranty, 60-day warranty, 90-day warranty, right? And it's on the part only. But what is it on OEM parts versus remanufactured parts, or a non-OEM part? You know, maybe the warranty is 6 months on an OEM part, but only 1 month on an aftermarket part. Well, unless you say that to the customer, they don't know the value. They're saying, well, why am I paying more for that? Well, because it comes with a better warranty, right? Now, they may say, I don't care, or they might say, oh, boy, that's important to me, right? But they won't know it until you say it. So it's really talking about warranty. Here's another one that comes in big time, is parts. The warranty on most parts sold over the counter are on the part only. But once you install it, many manufacturers back that as well. And that's a real gift, in my opinion. When a manufacturer says, you install a part on a customer's machine and it fails, we'll not only replace the part, but we'll pay you to fix it. So now that the dealer, right, is getting paid, but the customer sees that value to say, wow, so if I do this myself, I buy this bearing, I have 30 days warranty, but only on the part. But if I get you to do it, it goes to 6 months, and it's parts and labor is included. You know what? For $200, you guys fix that bearing. I'm not going to do it. But again, the customer doesn't know it until we show that to them. They may still say no, but are we producing that to them, right? And now you might say, well, my manufacturer that I get my parts to, they don't offer that. But that's really not stopping you from creating your own warranty for installed parts, right? You're probably going to back it up anyway. If one of your technicians installs a part and it fails, there's about a 98% chance you're probably going to foot that bill anyway. So why not put it in writing up front and say, if we install a part, it comes with whatever it is, 6-month warranty, 12-month warranty, and it includes parts and labor because you trusted us to install it. That customer might see that value. So it's really driving that message home, because what's your risk? Your chances are, like I say, you're going to pay for it anyway. You might as well just put it in writing and say, this is what we do if we install that part. Okay. Now you should check with your manufacturers and find out what they do cover, right? Some manufacturers do a tremendous job of providing extended warranty if it's installed by the dealer. So find out from your manufacturer exactly what is included in that. And it might be a great discussion to have, especially if you're dealing with a short line manufacturer that might say, you know, we'll still come good for some of that labor. That's possible, right? Because it's driving that business into your dealership, which is what they ultimately want as well. So we want to make sure that we're training our frontline staff. Okay, so making sure that they're aware. So whether it's your parts counter staff, so I'll give a few examples here so that they understand, you know, what is the parts warranty. I'll tell a quick story. I went to a dealership just sort of on a random, you call it a mystery visit, and I asked the question, you know, what's the warranty on these parts? I won't mention the brand. And the parts counter person said, actually, I'm not sure. And then they asked his parts manager, and the parts manager said, I don't know either. You'd have to talk to the service department. You think about that. I'm not saying this to belittle them. It's really just shows to me that they haven't been trained. They should be able to say, here's the warranty on that part, you know, because it was a fairly major manufacturer that they represented, but their front counter people didn't know what the warranty was. Okay. And what is the difference if I install it myself or if the dealer installs it? Well, if it doubles the warranty, boy, they should be selling that and trying to get that service work in, right? And also making sure that your front counterpart staff aren't looking at related parts as just upselling. To me, I don't really like that word upselling. What I really look at is providing that solution, those related parts, so that customer goes home with that bearing for his baler, that he's actually saying, man, this still didn't solve my problem. I wish that parts person had told me that I should replace the stub shaft and both collars, right? Or both flanges. You know, I'm using that as a silly example, but really the customer wants to get up and bailing. That's the problem, and you need to provide that solution. So by selling him the related parts, him or her the related parts, that's really showing that you care about the fact they want to get baling again, putting up hay, and also providing those options. So we talk about most manufacturers now are offering remanufactured components in a lot of places, OEM parts, and some dealers also have access to you know, non-OEM parts, you know, components that might just work for that customer, especially if it's on an older piece of equipment. So rather than discounting, saying, hey, if you want to save a little money, why don't I get you into this reman part? Or if you want to save a little money, I have this aftermarket part that I could sell you. You know, here's the benefits to it. It's a lower price. However, here's the downside. It may not fit as well, and the warranty isn't as good, but it will save you $20, you know? So it's just having those front counter staff. Same thing with your service administrators. They need to know that too, right? When it's a dealer installed part, you know, what is the warranty, so that they can talk about it with the customer. And if it does help with extended warranty, maybe it pushes that warranty out from 6 months to 12 months if it's dealer installed. And your service technicians need to be aware of this too. This one to me is really important because our service technicians, they're really well trusted by our customers. When a technician gets asked, hey, do you think this part is okay? Do you think I can get through harvest with this one? Do you think it's going to be all right? Whatever that technician says is like the gospel to some of these customers, because they trust that technician, right? And if the technician can say, you know, here's the thing, right? If I install this part, here's what it's going to mean to you. This is what the warranty is going to give, and I can set it up properly if I do it. If you do it, here's the benefits. You may save a little bit of money. However, here's the downside. It doesn't come with a warranty that if it happens to fail because of improper installation, or even if the part fails because it's faulty, labor still isn't covered. And that customer might say, wow, okay, well, now I have a decision to make. And that's really being honest to that customer. And so your service technicians need to be able to do that. And again, with the complete good sales staff, right? If you've got a machine, we used to laugh at this all the time in our dealership. If a salesperson was to say, yeah, no problem, we've got a pre-owned machine out there and it's been ran through the shop. We always laugh at that line. It's been ran through the shop. Well, that really doesn't mean anything to the customer, but if they can come back and say, look, we inspected it with our inspection program, and here's the parts that we found were faulty or questionable, we replaced those parts and under our program. So if any of those fail on this pre-owned machine, they're backed up with a full season parts and labor warranty. Well, now your complete good staff are now not only telling the truth, but they're actually identifying to that customer, you know, we put these new components on that machine to recondition it, and this is the support that comes with buying this pre-owned machine from me. So it can have really not just your frontline parts and service staff, but also your complete good sales team as well. And that really differentiates your offering. If they're saying, well, I think I can get another machine at auction, maybe I can save a little bit of money. Well, before you make that decision, I want to tell you what differentiates our machine from that one that you might be able to save $1,000 on at auction, okay? So really to sum up our summary here is just to have a look at customer retention through your aftermarket department. Really, it's getting your arms around that customer and making sure that every time they make their next buying decision, they're saying, wow, that organization looks after me. Doesn't matter whether it's parts, service, sales, you know, they understand my business. I trust them. I need them as a partner in my organization. So again, going back to the Ag Equipment Intelligence 2020 Brand Loyalty Survey, I'm just going to click through quickly. These are the top 8 items that rose to the top. Now, I should share, you should really go to the website and download. You can purchase the complete brand loyalty survey because it's slightly different in different regions, and there's some different comments that come in depending on the brand. So there was some priorities for, you know, John Deere customers, Case customers, AGCO customers, New Holland customers that I found quite interesting. So I'm using the general one here, but basically here was the top 8 or 9 items: parts availability, product engineering, price, better dealer repair and service, product specialists at the dealership, better manufacturer's warranty, bad experience with the dealership, uptime guarantee or loaner programs, or bad experience with the current brand. So I just wanted to talk about these just real quickly. Is when you think about what's within your control, obviously parts availability is really comes back a lot to the dealership's ability to predict what parts they're going to need. And that not only means following your proper stocking to have the parts there, but also doing the little things like tracking lost sales. So if you're losing a sale, you're tracking that as, wow, we've lost 2 or 3 sales on that part. Maybe we better have a look at it. Are we not stocking it, or do we have the wrong price? Why are we not getting that business? They're going somewhere else. Product engineering, again, really comes back more to the manufacturer. However, this can mean making sure we're selling the right components, kits, maybe some aftermarket additions to a machine to match it to their farming conditions or their operational conditions, so that that customer says, well, the reason I deal with this dealer is because they always set up my machine with the right options to suit the conditions that I work in, whether it's custom or on their own farm, okay? Lower price, again, they think, well, we can't control that. And it is important. This was really more on the whole good side, but when we're talking about price here, when it comes to aftermarket, is really to say, how can we combat lower price? Well, maybe it's looking at our choices of what you stock. from OEM parts to remanufactured components to maybe aftermarket components, that could give that customer a choice to say, if you want a lower price, I have an alternative for you. However, here's the upside and the downside to that. Better dealer repair and service. This has always been in the top 4 or 5. And this really says a lot that customers want. They'll buy and they'll keep buying from you if they know that you're going to keep them going from parts, service, and being there when they need them. So it's very, very high. Product specials at the dealership is the next one. Just again, as a review, is not a lot of dealerships think about, well, what customers mean by that is having someone that shows them how to run their new GPS or how to set their new combine or adjust their planter or work with their GPS equipment. That isn't always the case. A lot of customers, when you talk to them, will say it comes back to specialists. When I come in and I can say to that parts person, is this going to be the right part for my conditions? Will this work well in my muddy conditions or my sandy conditions? Is this going to last the whole season, or should I be buying a high wear item? So that really comes back to having that trust in your frontline people and that training to be able to say, I understand, Mr. Customer, how you use your equipment. Therefore, here's the options I'm going to give you, and this is why I'm recommending this particular one. That's a specialty that you only can offer that they can't get by Googling it, right? So it's really driving that through the aftermarket. Warranty, we talked a lot about this one. And again, when I use this example, I really encourage our frontline parts and service people to understand what the warranty is and what it is on new components, remanufactured components, and what the difference is if it's installed by the dealer or in some cases installed during an inspection program. You know, sometimes your warranty even is different if it's installed during a seasonal program than it is as an emergency repair. Bad experience with the dealership. Again, just training, making sure your frontline people really are looking after that customer. And there was a comment that a customer, when I was reading the brand loyalty survey, where a customer, it's really around the soft skills and showing that they care. And there was a comment that said, I'm happy if I know that there was a genuine effort being put in to understand my needs, right? And to get me up and going. So the customer was saying, I'll remain loyal if I believe that dealership is making a genuine effort to look after me. And that's really the experience, more so than being a lower price, was really, really important. Uptime guarantees and loaner programs, again, that comes back to the dealership and really backing them up to make sure that if a machine goes down, that you're able to get them up quickly, provide a warranty for that component that's been fixed, and perhaps a loaner if you can't get them up and running. That's a real team effort. And of course, bad experience with the current brand. I included this one because it was really interesting. As I read through the survey, they may check off that they're loyal to a certain brand, but when you read the comments, a lot of customers associate the dealer as the brand, right? They might say, I'm going into New Holland to pick up parts, or I'm going into John Deere to get something fixed. Well, they're not going to New Holland. They're not going to John Deere. They're going to ABC Equipment Company, right? So to them, a lot of customers, you are the brand. So if a bad experience might not be with the color of paint of the machine they're using, the bad experience might be how they perceive the brand of what they're running in their equipment, not just the color, but the dealer or the manufacturer and the dealer that supports them as they go forward. So with that, I think we're about 10 minutes away from the top of the hour. And so with that, I'm going to, I'll just wrap up here just by saying there may be some questions that come in. There's my, whoops, I've got a bit of a typo there. It should be just kelly@kzan.ca. Sorry, I don't know how I missed that typo. So you can reach out to me directly if you have some specific questions. I also want to point out our dealerinstitute.org. we're coming up with, because of COVID, we're working on some virtual delivery of some of our parts counter sales programs, service counter sales programs, and other sales training around leadership and sales management that we're going to be delivering virtually. So if there's anything that, keep an eye on our website there if you're interested. We haven't rolled them all out yet, but we're behind the scenes. We're working very, very diligently to come up with programs to support you without having to travel too far with some of the restrictions. So with that, Kim, I'll see if there's any questions that have come up.
Yep, we do have some, and just a reminder to anyone, you can use the Q&A field to submit questions. First one is, what compensation plans do you recommend to address customer satisfaction and gross margin?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I think incentives work very, very well. And my opinion is generally incentives are set up to motivate behavior in a certain direction, right? So if the focus is only on making money, well then, and you're incentivizing that way, then hope your employees sometimes will be saying, well, I'm motivated to reach that goal, so therefore that's what I'm going to do. So in my opinion is as a manager would be to have a mix of things and make sure your staff, your frontline staff, understand that yes, we need to be profitable. That's what keeps the wheels turning. On the other hand, we also have to make sure that we're retaining customers. So how can your frontline staff be well trained enough to say, how can I make sure that we're still profitable and still look after that customer? And so I would say keep an eye on both. If you're driving your margins really high and chasing customers away, well, then you better be doing some training on why you're losing those customers. And if that takes an incentive. But I will also say, what I was always surprised when I work with dealerships is that a lot of people really do care. They just don't understand how important it is that their interaction. They may not even realize when a technician says something like, "Oh, those parts guys, they never know what they've got," or the parts guy said, "I don't know, our technicians, they don't have much experience installing that part." Well, a comment like that can just drive a customer away, and they don't realize the impact that has. So I think the big thing is just to train your people to say, what you say really has a big impact. So let's make sure we're always working as a team. So so I think part of it is just making sure they understand it. And then if you want to put some incentive plans in, fine and dandy. But I think it's amazing how people just want to do a good job, but they need to know why they're doing things.
Right. And then any thoughts on, so, once you've trained these frontline people to be asking these questions and to, be communicating some of these other options that are available, short of a manager needing to babysit the parts counter, any thoughts on how to, make sure people are actually following through on that training?
Well, I always say, I always laugh at, I like quotes, and people remember the baseball catcher for the Yankees, Yogi Berra, and one of his comments was, you can see a lot, you can observe a lot just by watching. And I always think that's a good one. Yes, your managers, that is your job, to have a look at what's going on with your organization. If you're not paying attention and a customer's walking out the door, well, you can't even go and coach that person. So I'll try and share this real quickly with an example. I went and picked up some stuff at a local farm supply place here the other day. And I went there. Before I went, I looked online. It showed they had stock. So when I got there, the salesperson said, "No, we haven't got any of those." I said, "Well, it says on your website you do." And he said, "That website's always wrong. They never update it." And he walked away. And so on my way out the door, a manager said, "Hey, did you get what you needed?" And I said, "No, actually I didn't." And that manager said, "Oh, hang on. You know what I can do here? I have an alternative product that will do the job for you." it's a little bit more expensive, but I'll give it to you at the same price, because, I know what you're trying to do. And I thought, boy, that's pretty good that manager came along. But once I got in the car on my way home, I was thinking, I wonder if that manager actually went to that employee and said, and used it as a training opportunity to say, here's how you handle a situation like that, right? Next time, here's what you do. So a manager should be a coach. So if I can answer that question by saying, yeah, you may call it babysitting. The other thing is just give them the tools, make sure they understand, say, here's all the warranty. Here's what happens if we install it. And make sure you're communicating that to customers. A lot of parts people will just say, well, yeah, okay, that's easy. Now that I understand it, I can talk about it, right? So hopefully that's helpful.
All right. Those are the only questions that have come in so far, but we do have time for probably another question or two if anyone else had a question for Kelly.
I'll just add one more thing as you're waiting for a question, Kim, on that one. I've seen dealerships put together, they get together with their teams and say, what's the most common issues that we run into, right? So rather than the manager babysitting them, getting the team together and saying, you know what, seems like our number one thing that we get asked all the time is about discounts. So let's have a little training session on how to handle discounts. What could we say when a customer asks for a discount? Or the next one might be say, like, how often do you get asked about warranty? Oh, we get asked all the time. Well, what do you say? I don't know, because I don't know the warranty. Well, put together a cheat sheet to say, well, that's good. So we're going to do a little training session on the 4 different warranties that we offer at our dealership. And so again, it's just training them for, make a little cheat sheet. So when a customer does ask, say, you know what, I have that information right here. On electronic components, here's the warranty. On OEM components, here's the warranty. So that your people they're confident that they can answer that question. Even if they have to look it up, at least they know exactly where to go, rather than just saying, I don't know anything about it. So that might be a better indication for both those last questions. I don't necessarily think that if you said, hey, I'll throw an extra $1 an hour at you, a lot of people still aren't going to go digging for those answers. But if you help them provide those solutions, they'll deliver it. I mean, 99% of people just want to do a great job for those customers.
Okay, and then what's a best example of predictive purchases in practice?
Well, predictive would be just having a look at maybe the annual usage of a machine. So just understanding a few things. I think about our own market here. We're kind of mixed. So we would see some customers would really pack the hours onto tractors. Other customers wouldn't. So understanding, hey, this potato farmer, he's putting 700, 800, 900 hours a year on those row crop tractors. So we can predict what he's going to need compared to the grain farmer outside of town that only puts 150 hours on his 4-wheel drive a year, right? And then you can also do that with mower conditioners, with balers, saying, we have a customer here that puts up 15,000 bales a year. So we can pretty well predict, when he's going to be needing pickup teeth and bands and new lacings in his baler belts, right? But if your frontline parts people have no idea whether he puts up 20 bales or 20,000 bales, pretty tough to predict. So I guess that's really my point is help your frontline people not just understand the equipment, but understand your customer, and being able to predict how long parts generally last. And you can really work with your service department there as well, because sometimes your service department can say, well, this is pretty common. After so many hours or after so many bales, we know that these parts are going to be wore out. Pretty typical in our conditions. Well, good. Let's be a little more predictive then when we talk to customers.
Okay, so making sure the departments are talking to each other, it sounds like.
Yeah, really working as a team, and also your sales department, right? I mean, I'll share an example. I was in a dealership and a customer walked in the door, and I happened to be talking to the parts manager, and I said, who's that gentleman there? And the parts manager said, I have no idea who that is. And the sales manager said, are you kidding me? Like, that guy buys, close to $3 million worth of equipment from us every year. How can you not know who that is, right? And I was looking at it saying, because you're not communicating with each other. Like, the sales manager should have walked out and said, hey, I want to introduce you to my parts manager here. This is so-and-so, and this is where he farms, and this is what he does, and this is how he makes his money. Well, wow. I mean, that shows you care, right? But so that's just an example. Just break down those silos between the departments to say we have to get our arms around these customers and really understand them, because they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if we lose touch, they're going somewhere else.
All right, I think that's a good spot to wrap up on. Thank you everyone for joining us today. The presentation and audio will be available on the Farm Equipment website in the event you want to go back and review it. Watch your email and the Farm Equipment newsletter for more information on that. On behalf of Kelly, WEDA and the Dealer Institute and the Farm Equipment staff, thanks for joining us for today's webinar. When you leave the webinar, you'll be directed to a short survey. Please feel free to reach out to us and let us know what you thought of the live event and if there's any topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.